Welcome everyone. We're about to begin and we are being recorded. I think you had to agree to that when you clicked in. I did when I was testing. Please keep your mic muted when you're not asking questions or commenting on anything. You don't need to turn on your web cameras, but I think Beth wants to do some interactive stuff and might appreciate that from time to time. She's happy to take questions at the end and during the presentation. So if you have anything, I'll keep an eye on the chat. You can also unmute your mic and ask questions at any time. So this is the TESOL International Association's Reading and Vocabulary Intersection, and we're pleased to present Beth Skeleton's webinar, Building Vocabulary for Elementary Multilingual Learners. So we're very pleased to have everyone here. I'm Thomas Beery, I'll moderate, and let me turn it over to Beth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Thomas. I appreciate it. And welcome to Sophia and Alyssa. I didn't see you guys pop in, so I wanted to make sure that you were greeted personally as well. So I am coming to you today from my home here in Western Colorado. I am currently a presenter, a coach, and a consultant, and I have the opportunity to work with teachers all over the world. And this is an example of it. We've got all over the US for sure. Linda Idle, welcome. It's so nice to see you, at least your name. Linda is our TESOL president here in Colorado. And so it's fabulous that she's in the room as well. I know one face. So today we are learning to implement strategies for teaching high leverage vocabulary to elementary multilingual learners. And this is the first strategy we're about to do, is called annotating the objective. So implement is to put into action or implementar. Now, I know that there are a lot of different languages that our multilingual learners speak. Thomas, there in Japan, you would not have implementar, but you'd have your Japanese translation. Whatever the main languages are in your students, that's what you could do here. What are strategies? I'm going to call those actions. They're estrategias. They're anything that you do to help students and support them in any way. When I use the word high leverage, I'm talking about those really important or useful words. So not every word in the text, right? And who are our multilingual learners? Well, these are any students that speak and understand multiple, more than one languages at varying levels of proficiency. So multilingual. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm not multilingual, but they have some Spanish, they have some German, they have some Japanese, they have some English, they have some of lots of different languages. That's fine. We can consider them multilingual learners as well. So that's your first strategy. It's annotating the target. I know Donna is in Georgia. I have worked with Georgia. I know you're all about targets, right, Donna? And you probably have these for every lesson. But if we annotate them, if we make them clear with visuals, with other words, with gestures, then our students know what we're talking about. So that's the first one. This session, this very short 40 minutes together, is all about avoiding vocabulary overload, because it feels like this to our students if we don't. Oh, our poor donkey. His whole load is so full that he just can't move forward. So we're trying to avoid that with our students, because they're just getting so much piled on them all day that if we can do some of these strategies and choose words wisely, we'll be preventing that overload for them. So that's the point for today. I would have you in the chat, get your chat fingers ready. We're going to be doing a chat blast. How do you currently teach vocabulary? So if you would just put in the chat box, but don't hit return yet. We are 4 years into pandemic or 4 school years into pandemic teaching. So you know how to do a chat blast. Just type. And when I say go, then you'll hit it and we'll get all the answers back. So give everyone a chance to type. How do you currently teach your vocabulary? And Sinai, don't type and drive, please. So now it's okay, just in your mind. I want to welcome, it's either Binellan or Binellan, welcome. If you want to correct how I say your name. Kari, welcome. Kate, welcome. I didn't get to welcome you earlier. All right, in just a second, we're going to hit return. Go ahead, hit return. Thank you, Lynn. All right. Donna got a lot in that time frame. Pictures, words and sentences, synonyms. Oh, thank you, Donna. So important. It depends on why. Yes. App supports like Quizlet. Nice. Thomas is at the university, just so everyone in the elementary knows. Visual aids. Yep. Google Slides. Thanks, Lynn. Labeling words. Vocab into literacy and content through pictures, explanations, and actions. Kari, and I'm thinking it's Kari because my daughter is Mari, but it might be Carrie. So sorry if I say it wrong. Yes, that's exactly where we're going. So thank you for being the last one to hit the return, Kari, because I am using that as my launch pad. We are going to be talking about how do you teach the vocabulary within the context of your text, your literacy that you're working with in your K-5 content area. So to do that, I'm going to do a little experiment, and you get to rate your knowledge on 4 English words. These are all English, I promise. And a 1 is you have no knowledge, you've never even heard this word. A 2, you may have heard it, but you only have a general sense, like it's a positive word or a negative word. That's kind of general sense, right? Number 3, you know the word and you can use it in context. So I'm looking for what is your knowledge of 4 of these words. Welcome, Kate. We're so glad you're here just in time for the vocab experiment, okay? So here's how it's going to work. I will show you in word 1, I just need you to quick type your number. Remember, number 1, you've never heard it. Number 2, you've heard it, you know a general sense. Number 3, you know it and you actually use it. Just word number 1, could I see your numbers? Oh, you guys are fast. You can do them all. That's fine. Word 1, 2, 3, and 4. Ooh, Lynn knows one of the words, or Borborygmus, you know. Go ahead, you can put your numbers in for all of them, because look at how fast Kate is. She's got all of them. 1, 1. Go ahead and drop all your new numbers in. No worries, Lynn? No worries. Donna's got 4 1s. All right. That's what I'm hoping for, actually. Oh, number 2. Kate, you use that word. That's awesome. Let's see. Thomas, which word do you have a 3 on? Oh, no word.
Defenestrate.
Oh, good for you. Okay, don't give it away. Awesome. Kate's got a 4 on a word. Great. Okay, thanks, Linda. Linda's been through this before. She's not going to vote and screw it up. Okay, so it looks like most of us have most of the words are 1s. Because this is such an international group and you speak multiple languages, I can imagine that you can figure out some of those words. And Kate's like, oh, good. Number 4 is a recent acquisition. That's great. So what I'm going to do is a quick experiment with these words. And I'm going to teach them in the context of a story. And your only job is just to follow along as if you were in my elementary class. We're going to review the story that we read yesterday. And I'm going to focus on these words. When I'm done with about 7 minutes of a experiment, we're going to deconstruct what I did. Okay, so then it's going to be, what are all those strategies that you saw happen? But for right now, just play along with me. Now, I will have you interacting, and if you could do the actions, even if your screen isn't on. I know Donna's in her jammies, so she doesn't want to put her screen on. That's fine. If you're eating dinner or if it's morning, whatever, it's fine. You don't have your screen on, but if you would just play along with me, that would be great. And welcome, Andrea. I didn't get to welcome you personally, so I'm so glad you're here. You're just in time to enjoy the demonstration lesson. So yesterday, class, we read a book about a little boy who came home from school. Remember the story of Tom, who just came home from school? Well, if you remember, he was so hungry that his stomach was growling. It was making that growly noise. That's called Borborygmus. Let's all say that. You're on mute, so you can say it. Ready? Borborygmus. That's when his stomach is all growly. Can you put your hands together and put it right down by your stomach? I got to move my mic, my computer. See that growly borborygmus. Thanks, Thomas. Thomas has borborygmus. I'd like you to turn to your thumb buddy. Here's your thumb buddy. It's the person that you always have with you. Everybody always has thumb buddy to talk to. Get it? So you're going to turn to your thumb buddy and tell your thumb buddy, I have borborygmus when. Go ahead on your thumb buddy. All right, so you talked to your thumb buddy and you said, I have borborygmus when I smell hamburgers. I have borborygmus when I wake up in the morning. I don't know, when do you have borborygmus? Well, poor little Tom, when he came home in the story and had borborygmus, he said, Mom, I'm so hungry. I have borborygmus. Can you give me a snack? Well, we know what happened. Mom said, I'm so sorry, honey. I have to take the cullet out. I've got all this glass for recycling and it has to get to the recycling center right away. And so she asked if Tom could help her, even though he had borborygmus, it would go faster, to sort all of the cullet. So she had him, I have to stop my video so you can see this better. Whoop, sorry. We're going to start video, but get rid of the background so that you can see what I have behind me. Here we go. Very fast. All right. So Tom gets into the bag and he pulls out this. And he has to decide, is it cullet or not cullet? So you're on mute, so it's fine. You can talk. So here we go. I'm going to do one and you say cullet or not cullet. Cullet or not cullet? You're right, it's cullet. Let's try another one. This one, cullet or not cullet? No, not cullet. He puts it in that box. Last one, cullet or not cullet? Yep, thanks. That one's cullet. So he puts it over in the cullet box. Well, that was helpful. And he still has borborygmus. His stomach is still growling. He's very hungry and says, Mom, can you please give me a snack now? And Mom says, almost, let's get this cullet to the recycling center. And just as she picks up the cullet, oh, sorry. Before we do that, you've better draw a quick sketch of your cullet. So I don't know what your cullet looks like. You saw cullet. I just went outside and grabbed my cullet. Please draw a quick sketch of what I might see in your cullet if you're going to the recycling center. What might you have in your cullet? Can you draw that? Awesome. And if we had our screens on, we could hold them up and show our wonderful sketches of cullet. There it is. All right. So Mom picks up that big box. Whoop. She picks up the big box of cullet and she's on her way out the door with the big box of cullet to go to the store. Remember from the story? And you know what happened? She stubbed her hallux. Ow! She stubbed her right hallux right on the table, and all of that cullet dropped. The cullet dropped. She stubbed her hallux and it was throbbing really hard. Well, that was a bummer. So her big toe was stubbed and Mom dropped all of the cullet. And now there's cullet everywhere on the floor. Poor Tom has to pick up the cullet because he's got borborygmus and wants to get to the recycling center. He's got to help Mom, and her poor hallux is throbbing. Could you please look at your hallux if you have it exposed? You can say, oh no, I can pull mine up. There it is, Todd, thank you. Do you have paint on your hallux? I have paint on my hallux. Is there sand on the right hallux in this picture? Yep, there's sand on the hallux. Is there a ring on the hallux? No, there's no ring. There's a ring on the second toe, but not the big toe. So there's Mom with all the cullet on the floor. Tom's helping pick it up. He still has borborygmus. Her hallux is throbbing. At this point, she just wants to defenestrate that cullet. It's really awful for her. She wants to throw it right through the window. So if you know this word, you know that D means away or out of, off. Yeah, she wants to out the window it. Fenestre, many of you know, comes from French or Latin, and it's window, fenestre, yeah? And we also know that any word that ends in ate is a verb. So she wants to de-window it or out the window it. All right, so that's what mom in the story wanted to out the window. You guys get your thing, whatever that is, not a person, a thing, that you want to defenestrate. Are you ready? Get it in your hands. I don't know how big it is. Maybe it's that computer. Maybe it's your phone. You just, I want to throw it through the window. You ready? Think in your mind. You got it, the shape, the size. Look for a window near you, and we're going to defenestrate. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Defenestrate. There it goes, right out the window. We defenestrated it. So that was the story that we read yesterday. And today, we're going to continue on what happened when all the cullet was on the floor and Tom had borborygmus. Mom wanted to defenestrate the cullet because her hallux was throbbing. What happened next? All right, so that's the end of the demo. I incorporated in that 7 minutes of vocabulary demonstration. I incorporated about 10 different strategies. And that's your task right now. There were 4 words. I did about 10 strategies with the words. And I'm just wondering what you picked up on as the strategies that I used. This is where you got to get your typing fingers ready. Again, we're going to do it as a chat blast. So that means give everyone time to type. Go ahead and take some quiet time and type in any strategies you noticed. You can name them anything you want. And I will share those out in a moment. I'll be quiet. Monksaya, welcome. I hope I said your name correctly. I'm glad that you're here. I didn't get to welcome you personally before. Donna's fast on the draw again. Everybody finish up typing 1 or 2 ideas in the chat box, and then I will say hit. Go ahead and hit that button to return and send up your ideas. Awesome. Thank you. All right, so let's start with Donna. Repetition, repetition, repetition. That is huge. I happen to know that Donna teaches K5. She knows that this is essential. Kate, thank you for starting with the story. So the context is absolutely key. And this is actually the #1 point I want you to take away from today. There is something in our field, this TESOL world that we all inhabit, called front loading the vocab. And I want to push back on how that has been interpreted, which often even in elementary is interpreted as, here's a list of vocab. Let's learn these words out of context so that when you get to the text, you understand the text. But all of the research from really years of research is that the words are better learned in context themselves. So when we read the story, like I made up that stupid story, but if that had been an actual storybook, when I read it through the first time, or when the kids were working through the first time and they came across a word like borborygmus, I just gloss it. I just say right there in the moment, it's the stomach growling, and we move on. Because after the story is when I can really work with it and play with it and use all of the strategies. So it's much more effective that they connect the word with the story. So thank you, Kate, for dropping that in the box. It's the contextualization that is the power. There was a lot of personalization. What does your cullet look like? Do you have paint on your hallux? And then that repetition in lots of meaningful context. Nice. Donna caught it. I had you use a word in a sentence. You talked to your thumb buddy. So if I were in that elementary classroom, that would be a perfect turn and talk. So knee to knee, eye to eye, they would just partner A, partner B, you say one, your partner says, when do you have borborygmus? And they're using it in the sentence. So I gave you the sentence stem with the word borborygmus. So you have to use it in your practice. Sophia, yay, she got gestures, my intonation. So I would even call that onomatopoeia. So I turned the word borborygmus into like the sound that your stomach makes. The storytelling we talked about, yay, there were so many different visuals. I had cartoons, I had actual pictures of a hallux, I had my own drawings of defenestrate. You did some drawings of your own cullet. So there's lots of layers of visuals. You guys are getting them all. This is awesome. Lynn, the TPR, yes. So I was like acting out the story, right? I was stubbing my hallux. So acting it out, showing the gesture with the borborygmus. Beautiful. Lynn, you caught it. The suffix and the prefix. So D meaning out of and ate meaning a verb. So I did the deconstruction of a word. When it works, that's super powerful. You guys are amazing. Carrie, you caught the pictures, labels, acting it out, the gestures, verbal explanations. Yes. So I did give definitions. That's a new one. I just did it in very simple English, right? Kids were repeating it. They were turning talking. Beautiful. Yep. And the multiple entry points Thomas is picking up. Thank you, Kelsey, for the connections to real life. Linda's got this verbalizing to internalize. So I had you guys talking, get it into your brain and your head. That's a beautiful way of saying it. And then the context was huge. Oh, nice job. Sophia pulled it out. It's on the ground. Just a sec. My cullet, right? So that was huge. And the sound that the cullet makes that was different than plastic recycling. So good job, Sophia. Amazing, you guys. If we count all those that are in the chat, there's way more than 12. So I'm super impressed. The strategies that I was hoping you would pick up that I was modeling in the demonstration lesson were all of these, that the context of the story with the experience of the vocab is first. So you had already read the story. I was just using that story as the context to teach the words. Multiple exposures. So only 4 words in about 7 minutes, but man, lots and lots of repetition in those different contexts. You picked up all of this, by the way, the variety of visuals, the realia, the colored photos, the cartoons, the drawings, you guys picked up on those, that we use gestures in acting out. There was highlighting the cognates like the fenestre, what cognate in French and Latin, and native language connections. So that was one you didn't absolutely mention, but I know you were thinking it. Prefixes, suffixes, and root words were in there. We also had this asking questions like, when do you have borborygmus? Does your hallux have paint on it? So the question I'm asking has the word in it. And this is again a flip. It's not about they have to use the word right away to answer the question. It's about hearing the word in those contexts. So asking the questions, just another way I can get repetition. Another one was that integrated partner talk. And because we're on Zoom and because it's so short, I didn't do breakout, but I had you talk to your thumb buddy. So there's all kinds of ways to orally practice, even in a Zoom room. So this begs the question, and I promised this in the sign up when you said, it's like, which words do I teach? Now, clearly, I'm not going to teach borborygmus and defenestrate to my K5 kids. That was a model for you guys, right? This is about which words do I choose when there are so many, and I have students at all levels of language acquisition. How can I possibly know? Well, I'm going to give you some examples and then some questions you can ask yourself that will guide this, because there's no one right or wrong answer, but there are things that can guide you. And the first guide is about which words have utility. Now, this comes from an upper elementary, probably 5th grade text about its content text. And if this were a typical 5th grade social studies text that bolded the key words for social studies, will you type in the chat which words would be bolded for social studies? Like, these are absolutely the social studies words that we would have to teach. Just type in the chat as you read that, which ones would pop out. They would be bolded, or they would be, you know, glossed at the bottom of the page. If you can type that in the chat, that's great. Yep. Lynn, you caught 2 of them for sure. Territory and sovereign. I would think there's a couple of others. Sovereign, country, territory. Nice. Kari got citizen. Any others that you're thinking would be for sure social studies? Policies. Nice. So as a team, we got all 4. Way to go. And so those would be what I would call these content specific terms. Those would be words that definitely you would teach. Now, if I had to teach these words, I would probably have my students in their small groups, and each small group would be a sovereign country. And I would have them have a name for their sovereign country. And they would each get a different color tape, like electrician's tape that goes on the floor. And then I would hand out that electrician's tape, different colors, and they would mark their territory on the floor. And then each team would come up with some policies that would govern their sovereign country. And then each team, they would say how many citizens they had on their team. So that's one way of doing it in context, that we would teach these words. It's like front loading. They wouldn't have seen this paragraph yet, but they would have experienced with all those content vocabulary. And many, many elementary teachers are really good at that kind of thing, like making this sort of abstract content really concrete, and that's awesome. And yet the words that actually are going to cause our students to like, what, are not those blue words. We spend a lot of time on the blue words, and we need to. But what about those general academic words, the ones that you'll see in math and in science and in social studies and maybe in music too, and across the curriculum? And there's a whole bunch of those in this paragraph. Which phrases or words would you say are general, that they're good words for all kinds of content areas? Go ahead and type those in the chat. And Kate, some of them are in your box. You got it. Nice, Lynn. In contrast, you caught it. Kate, I would pull out a few of the words that you had that were social studies specific and say that those might be general content or general academic. Yep. Nice, Donna. Determines, equally. Yes, Thomas. Establish, entitle, course of action. Yes. Deal, equally with, therefore. Yes. You guys got it. Like, these are the words that really pack a punch and make a difference for kids across the curriculum. So words like establishes. I'm in a lot of elementary classes. I know that this is upper L. So as we go down, it might be features. You see that word in like second grade. What are the features of, it's like, that's the word that we have to teach that everyone just assumes, right? So it's establishes, it's the word determine. And we use it like identify. Who's teaching the word identify or determine, right? Those are the words that really are powerful for our students going forward and across the curriculum. Phrases like course of action or act independently or deal equally with. These are the general terms that our students are not understanding the text because of those. I'd also like to caution phrases like deal equally with. They are taught as a phrase, not as separate individual words. They don't mean anything. They mean different things when they're separate, but deal equally with is a package. Course of action is a phrase. So you teach it as a phrase, not as separate words. We also teach things like entitled to, teach them together. That's called a collocation. All of these are collocations. They're words that fit together. And so we teach them together, and the whole phrase goes on my word wall as a phrase. And these are the harder words to teach because, you know, I can't just put them in groups and say, you're a sovereign country and here's your territory. Like, that's really concrete compared to, how do I teach deal equally with, right? How do I teach entitled to? So it might be things of how do I teach that in a social context? For example, kids, if you get the room clean in the next 2 minutes, it will entitle you to 2 more minutes of recess. Go. So it's social context, but now I'm teaching that academic phrase. Do you see how I've like combined the two? So that's one way where you put it into a context that they can get the meaning, even though I haven't like given it as a definition, and then using it more frequently. I always say that the word wall is for me because I need to use those words all the time in lots of different contexts. So this is the research from Jeff Swears. He calls these things the bricks and the mortar. He calls the bricks those content or blue words, and he calls the stuff in between the mortar. Those are all those words like determines, deal equally with, therefore, in contrast. Those are those general academic terms that glue the bricks together. And we have to have both in order to have a sentence and a paragraph and the whole text. So when they did research, and this is a lot of text, so I'm going to walk you through it. This comes from this book called What Research Has to Say About Vocabulary Instruction. And somebody did this research where they did 1 million different words. They took the frequency of appearance of certain words in 1 million. And you can do that now with the internet. And then they said, how many times does it show up? So the word landform, for example, or hemisphere, only shows up twice in 1 million words. So not a lot of frequency, right? The last column is called dispersion. And that means how many different contexts are you going to see it in? The higher the number, the more the context. So for example, the word landform, you're only going to see that in geology or geography contexts. Yeah, you don't see landform in a narrative. You don't see landform when, we're in a social setting. So it's really specific context. Okay, so a very high number like 0.91 conditions, it appears a lot, 1 million, in the frequency, and it's used in a lot of different contexts. So that word conditions or features or effect, you see a lot more frequently. All right, so I'm going to give a pause and let you look at these numbers on here for a moment. What are you thinking? And we are a small group. If you'd like to raise your hand and talk, there's only like 10 of us in here, so it's totally fine. What is this telling you about how to choose your words? It can go in the chat. You can raise your hand, open up for anything on this. Because I'll tell you what, this research really struck me. All right, when chat stuff comes in, I will take it. But basically, I hope you're getting these general academic terms are super important. They are a place where we need to teach. And thanks, Tom, that it's really valuable to teach these general academic terms. They are a lot of bang for our buck, our time in class. And that's not to say that we don't have to teach sovereign country. It's just we have to consider those general academic terms as well. So when you want to figure out which words, here are 4 questions that I often ask myself. Number 1, is the word absolutely necessary for comprehension of the text? If so, it might go on the must teach list, right? So might, not necessarily, but it has to be necessary for comprehension. Number 2, is the word just a new label or is it a new concept too? So this is what I mean. Most of our students after the very beginning stages, they know the word pretty or they know the word nice, okay? And then they learn words like genteel or stunning or beautiful. Those are just terms that are connected to something they already know. It's like expanding their vocabulary, but it doesn't take any time to explain. But to explain what a sovereign country is, that's going to take time. Sovereign is a new concept. It's not like I can attach sovereign to something I already know. It's a new concept. So does that make sense? It takes longer to teach something if it's a new concept. If it's a new label, super fast. You say, it's just another word for nice. It's a nicer word for nice. Ha, right? It's a better word for nice. It's a stronger word. There's another question I often ask is how useful is that word going to be in other contexts? So the word condition, the word feature, I know students are going to see that across the curriculum. They're going to see it on all kinds of papers that go home. That's a really valuable word for me to teach all of my students, not just the language learners. And then finally, can working with that word actually help their word analysis? So maybe that word has a super prefix on it, like defenestrate, or maybe it's because it has a great root word like port, portage, portable. Once they know port, they know that port means carry. They've got a ton of words in their pocket. So if that word helps with learning other words, I might teach it, even though it doesn't answer yes to the ones above it, right? So you make some decisions along the way. And right at the very, very beginning, Donna's like, it all depends how I teach words, depending on what the word is and what it's going to be used for. And that's like these questions you're asking yourself, which ones, right? So we are winding down with just two things that once the students know those words, once they are confident they understand the meaning, we have to practice with the words a lot. And I wanted to leave you with two of my very favorite practice activities that are great for any content area and any grade level. So Thomas, even for your students at the secondary or college level. So this one's called photo gallery. And it's where you take those abstract terms like claimed, and you see a picture of a politician under claimed, or prevent, and you see the hand up. The teacher just pulled a bunch of pictures that could or could not fit with these, and the students had to match, and it doesn't matter as long as they can explain why that politician is with claimed. Because this man claimed that blah, blah, blah. Okay, they understand claimed. So as long as they can make the match and explain why, it doesn't matter why that is Basque and the other one is spectacular. I think the person with Basque could also be spectacular, and as long as they explain why. So this is called photo gallery. And you select pictures that match different words and then have the students put them together and explain why. And then my other favorite one is called Connect. And I built this one based on that old-fashioned game that we used to play with cards called War, where you both flip over a card and the higher card wins. So this one, each student has their own set of vocab cards that you've already learned, you've practiced. They both flip one over at the same time, and they have to find a connection between the words. Now, if the words are coming from the same story or from the same unit, like the weather unit, right? Everyone in second grade, they're doing the weather unit. So if they're all weather words, there will be a connection between them, rain and cloud, or rain and sun, or there will be a connection. And the students just have to figure out what that connection is. And if they're from the same story, there should be a connection too. So some teachers like to add with connect these phrases in between so that I could connect resources to exports if I was learning about social, something in social studies and it's a trade unit. So how do I connect? And I might provide some possible connection phrases for the students. So I wanted to leave you also with two activities that once they learn the words, like through the demo, all the things you typed in there, how I did it, then we practice, and we need lots of practice in context that has students make meaningful connections. And then headbands, we know from the game, they put it on their head and they just say what the other person has, they describe it until I can guess what's on my head. So my team has to give me clues about what's on my head until I can guess. And these are words from the unit, obviously. The headbands game is fun, but they may not know all the words in there. So I just replace it with words that we've been studying. Well, if I had to have you rate your knowledge now, and you can put the numbers with commas, like 1 is the first number, where do you think you are now? Could you use these words in a sentence? That would be a 3. Go ahead and rate your knowledge. Let's see how the demo worked. And you can drop that in the chat. Yay!
I also improved my understanding of defenestrate. I thought that was only for throwing people out a window.
I think it can be with things too. I think so. I think it's often used with people. Right. I love that Kate is 4. That wasn't even one of the options, but that's great. Kate owns them all. So what we just did here today is prove the research. Thank you for Marzano. This has been around for 21 years now, where he showed that imagery, so some kind of visualization, students who use that are scoring 37 percentile points higher than just repeating definitions, and 21 points higher than students who use terms in a sentence. So if you have to decide between having kids look things up in the dictionary or having them, just put it in a sentence, I would suggest you go with imagery, some kind of imagery. And that might be your realia or your gesture or your drawing or your storytelling. All of those provide imagery. And that's where we get the research from Marzano. I am going to break with connect with me. It's just been lovely to see, get to know you a little bit through the chat button. Thank you so much. But that's how you can connect with me at any time. And Thomas, we still have a few minutes for a couple of questions if any came in.
Yep. We haven't had anything in chat, but if anybody does have anything you'd like to ask.
Ask a question?
Please do.
Okay. Because I don't push into the classrooms, what is the best way to try to identify those words in the content area so I'm able to help the teachers by doing a lot of the vocabulary teaching when they're with me?
Super. So what I would suggest is those questions that you asked that were those at the end, and you'll be getting this recording. So you'll have the slide with the 4 questions. You could ask your content area colleague and say, which are the keywords that are absolutely necessary for this unit? That's the content part, right? Then you get to make the determination for the general academic terms, and you'll see feature and you're like, oh, I got to teach feature, right? I see conditions. I got to teach that. Right. Thank you, Kate. See you. Okay. So you get to make the decision on the general academic terms, because my guess is the content teacher, the 4th grade math teacher, is going to be focused on the math words, not the stuff in between. That's where your gift as an ESOL teacher comes in.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You bet. Well, thank you all so very, very much.
So let's give Beth a big hand, either with your little reaction buttons or actually. I found this to be a really valuable session. I hope you did too. And I'm sure the people who see this later will be sad that they didn't get to interact, but they'll learn a lot from it. So thank you again for your time today, Beth. This was really wonderful. And I'm sure everyone here really appreciated it.
Well, thank you all so very much. It was really, really fun to be with you. And thanks for zooming in from all over the world. I appreciate you. And yay, TESOL. Maybe we'll see each other in person in Portland. So thanks all. Take care. Have a good night, everybody.